Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the VRRC for the final week of racing in the VRRC's One Make Civic Cup, which has kept us entertained for the last month and a bit with 10 fantastically entertaining, eventful, dramatic races. And as often seems to be the case here on the VRRC, the championship battle all boils down to the final two 20-minute races coming to you tonight from the Donington Park circuit. Andy McEwen up here in the commentary box. Jack Oliphant back alongside me. And Jack, always at this point of the season, I like to look back and reflect on everything that we've seen. And it has been a really, really enjoyable series. Certainly, I've enjoyed the racing. It's been great to see the variety of drivers that we've seen up there fighting at the front, and I cannot think of a better circuit at which to conclude it all.
Absolutely not. No, Donington Park is a bit of me, as you know, Andy. It's my favourite track on the calendar, on most calendars, to be honest, and particularly this one. I mean, obviously, you said eventful in that build-up. Well, Croft was certainly eventful. I think we just put a pin on it and move on. Silverstone, I wasn't here for, but apparently it was fantastic. Alton Park and Brandtach were sensational racing, and side-by-side, really clean moves all the way up and down the field as well. We really loved that. And Thruxton gave us exactly what we were expecting, which is a little bit of carnage, but plenty of overtaking opportunities, especially into that last chicane. So it all culminizes down into Donington. And like you said, we got a nice, close championship battle on our hands.
Yeah, certainly the shorter of the two Donington layouts in use tonight, the Donington National, which is my personal favourite. I think it's got a really nice flow to it and generates some of the best racing you'll see anywhere in the UK, and that always seems to translate over into the sim as well. A completely different challenge from the one that we faced a week ago, the tight, narrow, very bumpy Croft circuit, and it was actually Max Bird who came out of that night with the strongest performance. He was the only driver to appear on the podium in both races. Didn't win a race, he was third in race one, second in race two, but that was the best average score, and it moved him into second place in the championship. Elliot Dalton-Ayres was the second highest placed driver, whilst Eric Axelsen had one of his best nights of the season. In fact, that was, I think, his highest scoring night of the season so far. Didn't actually get a podium finish, but a fourth and a sixth was a really consistent night for him. Max Bird getting the driver of the round for his excellent driving, in particular in race two, coming through from towards the back of the field to finish second place in the race. Now, nowhere on that graphic do you see the name Scott Buckner. You really should expect to see him there, because Scott is the championship leader coming into this final round, and actually almost has it wrapped up. We think that as long as he has a safe and sensible run with no penalties, no disqualifications, and gets to the end of race one, he should pretty much have done enough to wrap up the championship. But Croft did not quite go his way, did it, Jack?
It absolutely didn't, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's a pretty good point at which he can go into Donington with a little bit of confidence. He's still got that nice buffer, mainly because I believe Max Edmondson ended up with a penalty, obviously going into Croft as a spawning back to pit, so that's actually demoted him down into third. Max Bird up to second, so all of a sudden we're looking at the battle for second place, and you can't really discount Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, especially Elliot Dalton-Ayres, second at Croft overall. Showed a little bit of a turn of pace, and if you can carry that over to tonight, then you can start seeing him towards the top three, I would say. I'm going to have a look quickly at the prizes in a minute, but again, just to reiterate, there's pretty much battles from second all the way down, I would say, even to Eric Axelsen in sixth place. A couple of drivers that we would definitely say are out of position. Nicky Taylor in the HFT racing car, currently in 13th place with 83 points. He's not here tonight. He only partook in 3 evenings, I believe, or potentially 4. So that's why he's out of position. But the likes of Chris Shepherd, again, further down than we were expecting, and Jordan Brennan, unfortunately, who hasn't been here with us for the entire series. Carl Felvis in 9th place. Again, he'll be hoping just to get this series out of the way and move on, I'm sure.
Yes, although has actually been finding a bit more pace of late, so he'll be hoping to end it on a high, that's for sure. Now, should any of these drivers manage to lock in a top 5 championship position come the end of the season, which is indeed at the end of tonight's 2 races, then these are the fabulous prizes up grabs. Our champion will receive the wonderful AGON 34-inch curved gaming display. Looks like that's going to go the way of Scott Buckner, but he still has a little bit of work to do to wrap that up. Second place, which is where things really start to get tight. Remember, just 5 points between the second and third place drivers, but quite a difference in the prize. The Riggs SimRace 3 is up for grabs for the driver second in the championship. That really high quality professional sim rig. Third place, still a good prize, don't get me wrong. 2 tickets to a round of the TCR UK Championship this season, and that is going to be a very hotly contested battle between second and third in the points. Fourth place receives 2 hours of online driver coaching, and fifth place is the Valeting bucket from PowerMax, who also supply the Valeting kit to our driver of the round, as voted by myself and Jack at the end of the night. So that's what's up for grabs championship-wise, prize-wise, come the end of tonight's 2 races for the top 5 drivers in the points. Let's, though, take a closer look, shall we, at the track on which they're going to do battle, the high-speed and flowing Donington Park National Circuit.
So here we are, the last chicane across the line for the last round of the Maximum Networks Civic Cup powered by VRRC. So we're on track with other cars. It just distracts me ever so slightly, into turn 1. Just missing that apex, but still carry good speed, ran it out nice and wide and carry good speed all the way down through Craner curves here. Important as is for the rest of the track that we get a lot of the work done early in the corner. So you can see, get as far left as early as possible on the way to Old Hairpin, early on the brakes, and then feed the throttle in to balance the car. If you can get all that work done nice and early, it just carries the flow and all the momentum. Same again here into McLean's. You can see I follow the corner round, meaning I'm nice and straight, if not anything a little bit right on the way in the brakes, and it allows us to carry the speed all the way through the corner. Now into Coppice, for me the most difficult corner, down to third, nice and early, feed it in on the throttle. You see I got a little bit of a bounce, so actually taking a little bit more curb there would have been optimal, but still didn't lose too much speed there. Now all the way down Starkey straight towards the final chicane. This is always a case of how late you dare on the brakes, but make sure you can get off the brake as you start to turn in to balance the car and get on the throttle on the way out. And there is a lap of Donington Park. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday night on VRRC's YouTube, and make sure you give this video a like and subscribe.
So the national layout at Donington Park, a fitting host venue for our final 2 races of the season, and as Jack was saying, a real favourite of both mine and Jack's, and I think that kind of speaks to why this circuit is so great. Jack, as a racing driver, I'm not going to call you an ex-racing driver, I still hold out hope we'll see you back out on track again at some point, but certainly someone with real-world racing experience, and then myself as a fan of the sport. It caters for both. The drivers enjoy driving it, and people like me enjoy the kind of racing that it produces.
Yeah, it's brilliant, to be honest, when you go down Craner curves and you hook up Old Hairpin as well with the braking zone, especially if you've got a full manual car, H-pattern gearbox. It's really very enjoyable. You just heel and toe, in the Ginetta G40 anyway, you're in 4th gear, you heel and toe it down to 3rd, hear the engine rev the nuts off it, and then just sling it in. It's such a satisfying corner, as most are here at Donington, just to get right. As soon as you hit the sweet spot, there is nothing like it. Going over McLean's and Coppice as well. I mean, it's bumpy there that you saw with Carl Felvers, but you're sort of looking for a blind apex. So you're almost chucking it in and hoping that you're along the right sort of area of the circuit. And again, just so satisfying when you get it right, to be honest. So it's a big favourite. Even if there's not, I mean, it's not an overly complicated circuit. It's not like a Brands Hatch GP or anything like that, but it is just one that really does bring a smile to your face when you're driving around it. And one driver who's probably got a big smile on his face at the moment is a driver we haven't mentioned that much, actually, but it's Joel Lask in pole position at the moment, only by 0.004 of a second, but they all matter. Max Bird currently ahead of championship rival Scott Bugner as well, currently in third. But look at the times. People have clearly been practicing, Andy, because look, they're separated by about 0.2 of a second, the top 6.
Well, in the top 5 by less than a tenth. That is remarkably tight there. 75 1,000ths between Joel Lask on provisional pole and Kyle Felvers in 5th. I mean, that's a story in and of itself, isn't it? Kyle Felvers qualifying at the moment in 5th position. That would be a fantastic way for him to round out his championship campaign. There's Andy Dorman. Andy Dorman was the man to beat in qualifying on the Silverstone National Circuit. He was one of only 3 drivers, actually, so far, 3 different drivers who have set pole positions. Remember, Max Edmondson was the qualifying king for the first half of the season, setting pole in rounds 1, 2 and 3. Then Dorman at Silverstone. Last time at Croft, it was Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Given how we've seen relatively few drivers contending for pole positions, the fact that we've still managed to get 7 different race winners out of the season and 14 different drivers on the podium at one point or another is quite a surprise. Some drivers clearly excelling in qualifying, but in the races, it's been wide open.
It's why you come to race at VRRC, I would say, and why people come to watch it as well. It's, as you mentioned, wide open, pretty much unpredictable, and qualifying doesn't say everything, especially in a Civic Cup. Something like this kind of car is sort of very advantageous to drivers who, one, like to get their elbows out just a touch, a bit less than John Jones potentially on the track limits there, but 2, it's quite accessible. You can get used to the car. There are obviously coaching options of VRRC that help you get to grips with it a little bit quicker if you're struggling with it, but it is an accessible car that drivers do like to jump into, and it's satisfying when everything goes right as well, even if it's a bit bumpy when things go wrong. And it's not too far away from the car that we're about to jump into for the next season, Andy, is it? Because, of course, we've teased this on the social media accounts and everything like that, and there's a new series coming to VRRC, and it's the Virtual Touring Car Championship. Now, you might have said, oh, we've done that before, but this time we are the first, I believe, championship to do it with a hybrid system in place. So super exciting. We go on a European tour, as Rich has delightfully put it in all the sort of promotional material. But that's absolutely right. So you'll have a hybrid button, just like the British Touring Car Championship this year. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more reliable than the ones that are fitted to the British Touring Car Championship. But there's also a slightly new format with the races as well. We've got our usual 2 20-minute races, race 1 and 2. But every so often, when we go to Monza and Spa, you'll notice that we have a feature 40-minute race instead, which, Andy, as a sim racer yourself, will know that's a different kettle of fish all of a sudden.
Absolutely. I mean, it requires a very different mindset and a very different driving style. You have to manage the tyres, you're carrying a lot more fuel, brakes have to go longer. And the 2 circuits that we're running those races at, Monza and Spa, both very high-speed tracks, and I think they're good choices, actually, because Monza in particular, with the slipstream there, you'd expect the whole pack to stay close together for most of the 40 minutes. The same is probably true of Spa, so I think they could still be 2 of the most exciting races all season, even though they're that little bit longer than the 15-minute races that we will have at every other round. But yeah, fantastic to see a bit of innovation in sim racing and in the VRRC, a European group of circuits, which is nice as well. And a slightly longer season as well. You'll note over 8 weeks rather than the standard 6, so you get even more sim racing action for your money. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Head over to the VRRC Discord and their social media pages for more information on it if you want to enter the championship, and indeed more information on how and when you can watch the action. But certainly something that I'm looking forward to being involved in the near future.
Absolutely. Now, I do believe we have missed a big change in qualifying, so I do apologise for that. That was me prompting, and all of a sudden, as soon as we start talking about the next championship, this one spices up, because a big change at the front of the field sees Scott Bugner go to the top of the times. Now, Joel Lask did purple Sector 1, but I believe then went into the pits, so all of a sudden, the top 3 have mixed themselves up. Max Edmondson currently sat in 2nd place. Joel Lask now in 3rd. I believe Andy Carroll has improved and moved his way up into 6th place as well, just ahead of Kyle Felvers, who has unfortunately lost his top 5 positions, as Chris Shepherd bounces his way over the national pit chicane and goes straight into the pit lane. Probably convinced that he's not going to be able to keep that time, even if he set it. But Scott Bugner at the top, Andy, all of a sudden that's looking a little bit more comforting from his championship perspective.
Absolutely, because not only would that give him good track position for the race, but let's remember there are 2 championship points available for the driver who starts race 1 on pole position. At the moment, that would be Bugner, and that would further cement his position at the top of the times. It's also significant for those like Max Bird and Max Edmondson, Joel Lask, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who are fighting for other positions within the top 5. Every point is going to count for those drivers. So in a way, Bugner doesn't really need the 2 points quite as much as people like Bird and Edmondson and the rest do in their fight for prizes further down the top 5. So let's see if any of them can find the time they need to improve and take that pole and the 2 points away. Certainly Edmondson, the man most likely, with just 32 1,000ths of a second separating him at the moment from that provisional pole. Andy Dorman about to come through and log a lap time. We're into the final 5 minutes now of the 15-minute qualifying session, 2/3 of the way through. Dorman comes through and does not manage to improve, but we've seen, Jack, quite a lot of drivers over the last few minutes diving for pit lane, sticking on a new set of tyres. I wouldn't bet against there being a few improvements here in the dying minutes.
Yeah, I'm amazed Kenny Press is still in the pit lane, to be honest, because lap time round here is roughly the 1:20 mark. So you're probably going to get, once you've done your outlap, you're probably only going to get about 2 or 3 laps in, even if you left the pit now. So you're getting a bit to that point where you won't have the time to switch the car on and get back into your rhythm. But Kenny Press has come out, so fingers crossed we have all drivers out here and ready to put on a bit of a grandstand finish. Now, I believe Max Edmondson went on green sector 1, but couldn't put it together for the rest of the sectors. We're unlikely to see a faster lap this time round, but again, just like I mentioned, we're going to start seeing cars being warmed up, tyres being warmed up as well, as Scott Bugner goes slightly quicker in sector 2. I think that's slightly quicker overall as well. He's got a bit of slipstream from his teammate ahead of him as he dives all over the curbs. Is he going to be able to cement that pole position by going a couple of tenths faster? Comes across the line, and no, he's about a tenth down on his pole position time at the moment. Joel Glask also comes across the line, doesn't improve. So I think we're probably going to have to wait maybe another lap or so, Andy, but people are going to start getting a little bit sweaty under the collar, I would say.
Yeah, certainly. You want to start as high up the order as you can, although I will say we've got most of the expected heavy hitters up there inside the top 2 or 3 rows already. It's just a case of what order they're going to find themselves starting in. Andy Carroll is a good effort, actually, isn't he? 6th fastest at the moment, within 2 tenths of pole position for Andy Carroll. His best qualifying effort of the season so far was a 6th place back at Thruxton, so he's matching that at the moment, but only 0.03 of a second away from bettering it in 5th place. Chris Shepherd, who excelled in the Cayman Cup, the last championship that he entered here on the VRRC. He struggled a bit more in the Civic, and well, that kind of shows there because he fails to improve. He's now the slowest in the session because John Jones jumps up several positions and goes 13th fastest. What about Edmondson? Man who led the championship for much of the early running, right up on 2 wheels. That was too much curb, too much grass, and not enough traction coming off the final chicane. So this is highly unlikely to be an improvement. Indeed, that proves to be the case, but he does still have time for another couple of laps.
Yep, Scott Bugner was just catapulting himself over the curbs in the background of that as well. He hasn't improved, just to let you know. But this is Eric Axel's son, currently down in 9th position, which I would say is slightly out of position for Eric, especially how he went last time out at Croft. He's obviously got no slipstream ahead of, well, no teammates to help him with the slipstream. Comes across the line and, is about 1.2 seconds off pole position, and also doesn't improve his time for 9th either. So it's not looking particularly good for Eric at the moment. Carl Felder's slipping down slightly. Elliot Dalton-Ayres hasn't really followed on from the momentum that he gained last time at Croft, has he? So it's a bit of a shame for him, but I can tell you that Scott Bugner has just gone green in sector 1. Now, is his teammate up ahead of him almost getting in the way, Andy, or is the slipstream working well? We'll have to wait and see.
I think it's the latter of the two, because they've been circulating like this since they were last in the pit lane. They came out together and they've been about this distance apart, and then you can see that Lask does get out of the way out of Coppice. He didn't want to get in the way down the exhibition straight. Also, of course, Joel would quite like a lap in the slipstream as well, so I expect Bugner to tow him around on what will be the final lap of the session. Inch perfect through the first bit of the chicane. The car actually settles nicely over the second curb, and then Bugner pits. That's interesting. So obviously realised that he wasn't going to improve, but poor old Joel Lask would have quite liked a bit of a tow on this lap. So they may be teammates, but Scott Bugner not willing to give his teammate any help on the last lap. Brad Smith, I'm afraid, needs a bit of help finding the track. He is pointing the wrong way. I think that's out of McLean's. and about halfway up the hill towards Coppice. How he's ended up there, Jack, I don't know, but no sign of him moving anytime soon.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly even guess how he's done that, to be honest. He's clearly probably gone for the apex, and honestly, I can't even guess on that one. I'm guessing he's gone wide and it's ended up spitting him out, but for the reason he's not reversing is beyond me. Now, I'm just wondering whether actually Scott Bugner was a little bit worried at the pace that Joel Lask was showing, to be honest, because Lask, even though he didn't get any slipstream as far as we could see anyway, he might have had it in the first half of this qualifying session, but we didn't get to see Bugner go ahead of Lask at all. Just wondering, Lask is only 10th off. So maybe with that slipstream ability, he would have been able to maybe get that 10th and get that pole position away from Scott. And that championship standings and those championship conversations start to get a little bit more complicated when you're talking about a team game. I know from supporting Tom for so very many years in a BMW around the touring cars, it can get a little bit complicated and it can get a little bit focused, shall we say, in the pits. Now, Max Bird has just gone purple. This could be big.
Yes, Max really could do with those 2 extra championship points. Purple means that he's faster than anybody else in the first sector of the lap. Makes his way out of Coppice Corner, a crucial part of the circuit to get right, carry the speed down the exhibition straight. We're seeing no more improvements from anybody else inside the top 8 positions right now. So Bird, the last one, could possibly get up there and challenge for the pole. Hits the curb, hits the other. That looked neat and tidy, though. A bit wide onto the grass, but that might be all right. Max Bird needs to find just under a 10th and a half then to get the pole position away. Comes across the line. And all of that build-up comes to nothing because there is no improvement and he stays in 4th place. But it did look promising through the first part of the lap. Max Bird then staying in 4th place, which means that Scott Bugner, the championship leader, looks as though he'll be on the pole position. Chris Shepherd, the last driver to come through, but he will bail for the pit lane. So that is qualifying done here at Donington. Join us on the other side of this short ad break to hear from the pole sitter and begin the preparation for race 1. Welcome back to Donington Park and the VRRC Civic Cup qualifying done and dusted here for the final time this season. Just 2 more races before this cracking season of racing comes to a close, and it is a pole position for Scott Bugner. And amazingly, Scott, who joins us now in the commentary box, that's your first pole the season. It's a bit like your winning record. You've only had 1 win this season. It's been your consistent race results which have put you in a commanding place in the points, but nice to get a pole position before the championship ends.
Yeah, save the best till last, I suppose. This is where it counts. You know, I've just got to not get in trouble and sort of stay where I am if I can, and help Joel where I can as well, so he can come up in the championship. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
You're in a slightly odd position in a way, because after the 2 points that you've just won in qualifying, that means you're 28 points up now. It means that unless you have a disqualification or a penalty of some sort, the championship is very much yours to lose. So does that in a way put a bit more pressure on your shoulders? Does it stop you being as willing to get stuck into the racing as you normally would?
Yeah, I don't want to get stuck in. If there's battling and I drop down to sort of 3rd or 4th, I'll sit behind and just get the popcorn out and watch what happens.
Well, this could well be what happens here. I think Donington is going to produce some of the best racing we've had all season. Is it a circuit that you particularly enjoy driving? You're clearly quick here, but I know a lot of drivers rank it as one of their favourites to drive.
Yeah, I do like this. It's probably my favourite track in real life as well. So both me well, because I'm racing here in a few weeks. So if we can do this in 3 weeks, I'll be happy.
There we go. Good practice then for real world racing. What's that you're racing in, Scott, in a few weeks' time?
MGZR in the MG car club. I'm actually at Silverstone this weekend doing the GP circuit with them.
Excellent stuff. Yes, I was covering some MGs at Silverstone last week. Great racing it is. Anyway, we'll let you carry on your preparations. Best of luck though for this one, mate. The championship virtually within your grasp. Let's hope that you have a clean opening race of the night.
Thank you very much.
Got Bugner then on the pole position, and yeah, Jack, first time he's been on pole all season. That surprised me a little actually when I look back at that. But his whole season record been a bit surprising. Only once all season has he finished out of the top 5, and that was in that reverse grid race at Croft where he was caught up in a lap 1 shunt. His consistency has been incredible all season long.